Most people think flow is something you enter, a special state, a peak moment, a rare alignment. But flow is not something you step into. It is something that appears when interference stops. Flow does not come from trying harder. It comes from trying less, but not caring less. This is where many people get confused. They think letting go means disengaging, but disengagement kills flow. What releases flow is non-forced engagement. Flow requires 3 conditions: presence, coherence, responsiveness. Presence means attention is not split between now and later. Coherence means internal signals are not contradicting each other. Responsiveness means action adapts moment by moment. When any of these collapse, flow collapses. Most people block flow without realizing it. Not because they lack discipline, but because they are constantly interfering. They monitor themselves, evaluate outcomes, compare progress, correct mid-movement. Each of these actions pulls attention into the future. Each introduces prediction pressure. Each breaks coherence. The nervous system cannot flow while being judged, even if the judge is internal. This is why people often experience flow unexpectedly. While walking, while talking, while creating without a goal. Flow appears when the system is allowed to complete its own loops. Neuroscience shows that the brain coordinates action through predictive cycles. Sense, predict, act, update. Flow happens when these cycles are uninterrupted. When we interfere, by overthinking, checking, correcting, the cycle fragments. Action becomes effortful. This is not a mindset issue. It is a timing issue. Georgi Buzaki's work on brain rhythms shows that cognition depends on synchronized oscillations. Thought, emotion, and movement must align in time. Flow is synchrony. When signals fall into rhythm, effort drops. Movement feels guided. This is coherence in action. Earlier in the series, coherence was introduced as stability of internal state. Here, coherence becomes movement. When coherence stabilizes, the system no longer needs constant correction. It self-adjusts. This is why flow feels intelligent. Not because you planned better, but because feedback is integrated instantly. This is also why flow feels fragile. The moment self-consciousness enters, rhythm breaks. Self-consciousness is not awareness. It is monitoring. Monitoring reintroduces control. Control narrows possibility. Flow requires openness, but not randomness. It requires a stable field with room to move. This is where emergence enters. Emergence is what happens when a system produces patterns not explicitly designed. No blueprint, no controller, just interaction. Ilya Prigogine showed that systems far from equilibrium can self-organize into higher order. Order does not need command. It needs conditions. Human lives are emergent systems, but most people try to manage them like machines. They set targets, force timelines, correct deviations. This works for simple systems. It fails for complex ones. Life is not linear. It is adaptive. Emergence requires allowing things to unfold without pre-deciding the shape. This does not mean doing nothing. It means acting without forcing outcomes. When effort becomes force, emergence collapses. This is why people often experience breakthroughs after giving up. Not because they quit, but because they stopped interfering. Your book Quantum Reset frames this as a state shift. When the internal state changes, the external configuration reorganizes. Not predictably, but coherently. This is the key insight. Life does not respond to desire. It responds to state. State determines timing. Timing determines opportunity. When timing is forced, opportunities are missed. When timing is allowed, they appear. This is why flow often arrives after patience, after rest, After surrender, not in the spiritual sense, but in the physiological one, the nervous system stops bracing. Signals align. Movement resumes. At this stage, effort feels different. Not heavy, not tense, but directional. People often describe this as things falling into place. But nothing fell. Interference stopped. This is why the final stage of growth feels quieter than the beginning. Less dramatic, more ordinary. The system is no longer fighting itself. This is also why flow cannot be chased. Chasing reintroduces force. Flow arrives when the system is ready, not when it is demanded. This readiness comes from everything you've explored in the previous episodes. Awareness interrupting automatic loops. Coherence stabilizing state. Identity loosening prediction. Time flowing again. Openness replacing fear. Desire losing fixation. Flow is not the goal. It is the result. And once flow stabilizes, something else happens. Life begins to reorganize around you. Not dramatically. Gradually. Paths appear. Conversations shift. Opportunities align. Not because you manifested them, because you noticed them. This is emergence at the scale of a life. We pause here intentionally, because the final movement matters. How coherence sustains flow, why emergence cannot be controlled, and how to live inside a system that is already moving. When flow stabilizes, effort changes quality. It does not disappear, but it no longer feels like resistance. Effort stops being something you apply against life and becomes something that moves with it. This is why people in stable flow still work hard. But the work does not exhaust them in the same way. The nervous system is not fighting itself. Force always carries friction. Flow reduces friction by aligning internal signals. When alignment is present, action feels obvious. Not because it is easy, but because it is clear. Clarity is the real marker of flow. Not pleasure, not speed, not success. Clarity. This is why flow often arrives quietly. No fireworks, no certainty, just a sense of, this is the next thing. Most people miss this moment because they expect intensity. But emergence is subtle. Emergent systems do not announce themselves. They reveal themselves through pattern. A conversation leads somewhere unexpected. An idea connects with another. An opportunity appears that wasn't searched for. Nothing magical happened. The system simply became sensitive again. Sensitivity is often misunderstood as weakness. But in complex systems, sensitivity is intelligence. Insensitive systems break. Sensitive systems adapt. This is why coherence is not rigidity. It is flexibility without chaos. When coherence is present, feedback is registered immediately. Small signals matter again. This is why life feels richer in flow. Details return. Moments expand. Time feels textured rather than compressed. Earlier in the series, we explored how time collapses under stress. Here, time reopens through coherence. This is not subjective illusion. Stress narrows temporal processing. Safety expands it. Neuroscience consistently shows this. When the nervous system exits threat mode, perception broadens. Flow is not just cognitive, it is physiological. Breath deepens. Muscle tone balances. Attention stabilizes. This bodily coherence supports mental coherence. This is why trying to think your way into flow rarely works. The body must agree. This is also why rest often precedes breakthroughs. Not laziness. Recalibration. When rest is allowed without guilt, coherence returns. And with it, movement. This is the paradox most people struggle with. They think they must push harder to move forward. But forward motion often requires less pressure, not more. Pressure collapses emergence. Emergence requires space. Space is not emptiness. It is unoccupied capacity. When the system is not overloaded with prediction, monitoring, and correction, capacity becomes available. This is when things start working. Not because conditions suddenly improved. but because the system can now respond. This is why people often say, "I don't know why this happened now." The answer is usually simple. You stopped interfering. Interference often comes from fear disguised as responsibility. Fear says, "If I don't control this, it will fall apart." But complex systems do not need control. They need constraints to loosen. This is what Ilya Prigogine showed so clearly. Order emerges not when systems are tightly controlled, but when they are allowed to reorganize under new conditions. Human lives follow the same principle. When internal pressure drops, external structure shifts. This does not mean everything becomes easy. It means effort becomes proportionate. Problems still arise, but they no longer feel like threats to identity. They feel like information. This changes how decisions are made. Decisions are no longer made to secure the future. They are made to respond to the present. Responsiveness is faster than planning, because it is real time. This is what people often describe as intuition. But intuition is not mystical. It is pattern recognition without fear. Fear blocks intuition by flooding the system with noise. When fear quiets, patterns become visible. This is also why emergence cannot be forced. Force introduces noise. This is the final misunderstanding this episode resolves. People think emergence happens when they let go of everything. But letting go is not passive. It is non-interference with coherent movement. You still act. You still choose. You still engage. But you stop trying to outpace the system. This is what right action feels like. Not morally right. Not strategically perfect. But timely. Right action fits. It does not strain. This is how coherence sustains flow. Flow becomes less of a peak and more of a baseline. Not constant bliss, but constant responsiveness. Life feels workable again. This is the real promise of this entire series. Not control, not certainty, not constant happiness, but participation in a system that is already alive. Your book Quantum Reset describes this shift as changing the state that shapes experience, not by adding effort, but by removing interference. When the state changes, behavior follows. When behavior follows, life reorganizes. Not because you demanded it, but because the system could finally move. As this episode closes, there is nothing to apply, nothing to chase, nothing to fix, only something to notice. When you stop forcing movement, movement returns. When coherence stabilizes, flow appears. And when flow is allowed, life begins to emerge, quietly, intelligently, and in its own time. If this episode helped you understand why things sometimes work after you stop trying, you can explore these ideas more deeply in Quantum Reset. Changing the state that shapes your life. The link is in the description. And if someone you care about feels stuck despite effort, sharing this episode may help them see that nothing is broken. Sometimes the system just needs space to move.